have an age difference. We have life differences.
This is how you should live your life.
I got the faith, because to get the faith,
Got it. Well, let's jump into this.
this is the Old School, New School podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Old School, New School podcast. I am Will Charles Egan, and as always,
Hello.
Chris Meekins.
Hey.
We are so glad that you are here.
Yes,
I think this
thank
is
you.
what, episode 40 or close to episode 40. And if you enjoy the content that we're making, be sure to hit the like button.
39 and a quarter.
Yeah, it's one of those.
So when we're done, we'll be at 40.
Right. And then when we're done, we'll ask you to subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a little pop-up in the corner of the screen asking you to subscribe. And I challenge you to share this video with at least one person, if not two people, who'd like to know a little bit more about managing their money.
Yeah.
And how to be rich. And is it okay to be rich?
Well, down here in Florida, we've moved into
yes.
it's not really summer. It's still spring. But here,
Technically,
it's summer.
yes.
It was like 92.
Yeah, it's off season. Yeah. Oh, I felt it.
And
My car's feeling it, too.
My manager at the car wash went on a family vacation. And
Nice.
so I worked every day.
Uh-huh.
And yesterday,
Yeah.
nobody showed up.
Like customers or employees?
Employees.
What?
Until
no.
9 o'clock. One guy showed up for the front, which is the other
Uh-huh.
end, and another guy showed up a quarter after.
Yeah.
And I started vacuuming and cleaning the inside of cars starting
Right.
at 8 o'clock on the dot. And I went
Oh,
for
no.
almost an hour.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Just on
probably
your own?
half hour, an hour, pretty close to that on my own. I was
Wow.
soaking wet,
Yes.
soaking wet.
Yeah.
But
it's hard work.
that's what you do.
That is what you do.
But in Florida, everything slows down. Like
Yeah,
you work too.
Right about now, we're starting to experience a little bit slower activity too, which is, it's so odd because I work in a neighborhood where people live there. So it's like, where are the people going? But it's snowbirds is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, the arch nemesis of Florida crackers like myself that are born and raised here in Florida, and they frolic and they spend their money.
You would think that not that many people
Right.
actually leave, but it's true.
It's noticeable in traffic too. Like getting here was so much quicker than before, because now that they're all going home, there's less people on the road, less people in these houses. So there's a lot of vacant houses in my neighborhood where the snowbirds will, shack up for the winter months when it's cold up north, and then they'll go back, and that's all the tourist
right
money.
around Mother's Day they start.
Yes.
Well, actually Easter they start leaving.
Yeah, a little
Mother's
before.
Day.
And it's starting to slow down, but hopefully we have, the summer bash people that are like, school's out because school's about to be out, and then we'll have, all the summer camps and kids running around, people and spending their money hopefully so that we can get
like
back to
my wife
tourist
going
money.
up to Tampa today. She's
Oh, yeah?
gonna drive up. She's going to go see my daughter to it's Danielle's birthday.
Oh, nice. Cool.
She's old too.
Wow, jeez. Now that's on the internet.
Which makes me even older.
Makes you ancient.
So anyway, talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking last week about money and things
Yeah.
like that, and we mentioned How to Be Rich by Andy Stanley.
Right.
So you listen. He didn't listen to the DVD that I gave him because he
Right.
doesn't own one,
I don't-
or anyone that does own a TV.
I don't know. This laptop doesn't even have a DVD player. I used to have a laptop that had like a little disc insert. Now that there's so little accommodations for physical things nowadays, like the last stronghold for me is I like physical books still. I'm not reading ebooks, but with movies, you just rent it.
And it's so easy
Digital
to get them.
copy.
I mean, you can go, oh, that's a
yeah.
great book, which is, I have a lot of books on
Yeah.
my Amazon that I
Mm-hmm.
have purchased,
Yes.
but I have not read.
Oh, really?
I'm reading a new one, How Not to Do Business.
Wow. Okay.
It's actually audio,
Audio book. Yeah.
and it's by the guy that started Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby.
Hobby
Yes.
Lobby.
Yeah. Okay.
And how his first year they had like $192
in sales.
in
It
sales.
sounds about like this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And now they're like at $8 billion.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's
Hobby
crazy.
Lobby's crazy.
It's
Yeah.
crazy, but they talk about their growth and they talk about how God is involved in that. It's a great book.
Right.
If you want to
Yeah.
be encouraged that what God can do with pretty much anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but it still takes work and practice.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So you found it on the interweb.
The interwebs, yes.
Yeah, and which part did you
That well, it was part one. I couldn't find a part two. I think part two it said was another speaker, so I'm pretty sure I got the Andy Stanley bit. But it was talking about, it was funny. I was watching it one morning. I was eating breakfast, and my roommate was like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a sermon about how to be rich." And immediately he goes, "Okay, so this is like prosperity gospel stuff." I'm like, "No, actually, it's quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite.
It's all about keeping your wealth in perspective and how to manage it or how to give with it, how to help others with it well." And it talks about how you can make money and be wealthy in a godly way. Because, you read a lot of the New Testament things that Jesus said, you'd think that God hates rich people.
It's like God hates money. And that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, and then you read the Old Testament and you see all these proverbs and all these psalms and all these
prosperity and
yes,
blessing.
God's blessing could have been financial as well. And so what we want to talk a little bit about today is what to do to be rich and how to do it well.
How to do it well really is the key issue.
Yes.
Because, again, we live in a country that
it's pretty nice.
You don't make a lot of money.
Right.
As far as
relatively
the people
speaking,
that I hang out with.
Yes. Oh, I make nothing.
Okay. I mean, you make their eating out bill.
Right. Yeah. I'm like we just calculated it before. I'm what? Just above the midway. I've got like 56% of the population's
in
poorer
the
than me.
United States.
Yeah, in the United States, 56 is poorer than me, and then there's like whatever the math ends up being.
And you're 22.
Yeah, I'm 22 years old, so it's like kind of expected.
I calculated mine, and we're not going to talk about it.
We're not have to talk about it. It took a significant dip recently too.
Yes,
no,
but it not only talked about the being rich. It talked about our perspective of being rich. So, talk about that for a second. So what is rich?
Yeah, well, rich is how much money you have, but wealth is it's more than just your money. And talk about perspective. The thing that we did also calculated my income compared to the rest of the world, and what I said before was where I stand in the United States. In the world, I am in the top 10%, which is like, wait, what? Where is the rest of this other money? It's like, all these other countries where people make significantly less than you do.
Yeah, so let's stop there. Mm-hmm. So you've been overseas on a mission trip?
Yeah, a couple of times.
And where have you been?
I've been to Budapest in Hungary, and then I've been to Jerusalem and Israel.
And so when you're in Budapest,
yes,
were there a lot of people, rich people there?
Actually, yeah, Budapest is a fairly westernized city. It's pretty modern. There's a decent bit of wealth there. Jerusalem, less so. There's a lot of lower income people there. But yeah, you definitely notice it. And then there's less of a mentality kind of in like the United States. If you're rich, you're encouraged to be rich. There's more like a go-getter, self-made man mindset. In the Eastern world, there's a lot less of that. Like if you're rich, people look down on you. They're like, "Oh, come on, who does this guy think he is?" Kind of. And so there's less of that. And there's a lot more of like the old money over there. So you kind of inherit the wealth, and that's just how it goes.
Okay.
There is no you can climb your way up the ladder as much as it is encouraged here. So yeah, when I'm overseas, I can see it in more places. We're in like Jerusalem, because when I was in Budapest, we were in a city. It was pretty wealthy. But yeah, when you go overseas, and I'm sure you've seen a lot more of it when you go around the world.
I went to Africa,
yes,
a couple of times, you're driving through areas where people have nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there is nothing around them to have other than survival.
Right.
And some of the things that I learned were that, like their houses.
Right.
I mean, you're like, how do you do this? And they're like, well, we're surviving. We live in survival mode.
Right.
And so we really don't put a lot of money in the house because we're not, we may not be here tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're kind of living for today, which is a little bit more, I don't want to say biblical, but it's a little bit more biblical.
It is, yeah.
And it's like, well, you're taken care of. But it was amazing, though, to see the poverty around the world, and and everybody's going to go. One of the things that in his audio, the first one, the Bible study, you can do a small group. They have a small group audio on DVD.
Oh, jeez. I'm sure you can find it online if you look hard enough.
So yeah, I'm sure you can find it. But anyway, one of the things that he said is that if you you have time to come here once a week for 2 hours and not go to work, not worry about anything. It's like, I have time.
Yes.
Then you're richer than most people in the world. Most people in the world have to work from sunrise to sunset to put food on the table for that day.
Yeah.
So just the fact that we in the United States have time to say, well, I'm going to like kind of go into work late because I'm going to go work out. Or I'm going to go home early to go work out. I really don't need to put in a full 8 hours. I have time.
Yes.
That's most people in the world don't
have that. No.
Don't have free time.
Yeah, off day, free time, extra excess, and that's not.
And we're like it's the normal.
Right, and it's not a place to beat yourself up. Is to say, well, I have all these good things. Why shouldn't I do more? I need to do more. Right. I have all this excess time. That means I'm not doing enough. It's like maybe, but not in the way you're probably thinking.
No. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And he goes on, and again, it's a great audio if you want to listen to it. He talks about here in the United States, we have people that will go to a car dealer with a perfectly good 2-year-old car that they paid for.
Yes.
And they'll leave the car at the car dealer.
Yeah.
And then they'll give them money for them to get a perfectly safe. Every time I I got a Traverse. I got it in 21 when we got down here. A little bit after we got down here. So I got this Traverse 20 or 21. 21, I think it is. Yeah. So anyway, I get this paper every other day from the local Chevy dealer that says we have a brand new 24 model Traverse. And if you just give us your old car that you paid $45,000 for at the time, and give us another, and there's nothing wrong with it. I haven't even changed the tires yet, but I'll probably trade it in because it's going to need new tires, so I might as well get a new car. And he was saying that we don't want old stuff, and we don't want it to break down on us, so we give it away before it even breaks.
Right. Because you need
like
new.
your iPhone.
I was just gonna say I get texts every single day. You can trade in your iPhone 14 Pro, and you can get the newest model.
Get a 15.
Get
1 point more.
Yeah, it's just one. It's one number. It works perfectly.
It's not even like an 18 or a 21.
No, because it hasn't happened yet.
It's one.
But you need the new one.
The 15.
Yes.
So you bring your car in. Bring another 25,000 with you.
Yeah.
And we'll give you another new car.
Oh.
That's. Actually, it's exactly like
it's the exact same.
The model has not changed.
Right. What a good investment of my money.
Now, my car gets washed every day. It gets vacuumed, so it's like spotless.
Right.
It runs good. When it's something, oh, wait a minute. Well, it's not under warranty anymore, but it's still. I haven't had anything wrong with it.
That's
now,
good.
if it costs me like $1,000 a month, you're like, okay, maybe I ought to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But they say, I heard another guy say, the cheapest car you'll ever own is the one you presently have.
Yes.
To maintain it is cheaper than buying a new one.
Exactly.
So anyway, he goes on to talk about stories like that we give them good stuff.
Right.
Just because we don't want the hassle.
Yep.
That it might.
Oh.
In fact, I don't think it is that it might break.
No. It's really just because you need new stimuli. And yeah, I know, right? Because you can afford to do such things like that.
When my kids were young and cell phones were just coming out, they're all sitting in the backyard, and we've always wherever other than here had a fire ring.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah.
And so they were sitting around out back, and my son Matt and probably 10 or 15 of his friends, and they're hanging out, talking, doing whatever they do, and then one guy's phone went off, and he was like. His phone's ringing. He's like,
yeah, yep.
And it would be my phone ringing. I've got a phone.
Yeah.
Let me get it.
Yeah.
And it's
look
like,
at me, guys.
We live in a society that's like, oh, wow, you were able to get that new 15?
Yeah. I remember when I first got my 14 Pro, it had the little It's called the Dynamic Island. It's the dumbest name, and it doesn't matter. Does your phone have that? So it's this little, for the viewers, it's this little pill-shaped thing at the top, and there's a little tiny bit of screen at the very top. Because before it was like this little rounded outcropping. Now it's this isolated, and it does nothing else.
I do have a 15, by the way.
You do have, see, this hypocrite over here. He has a fit. All this talk, and you have one.
I know.
But yeah, so I had this little pill-shaped thing, and it's actually pretty nifty. You can use it to like change your music and stuff. But when I first got it, I was just kind of using my phone, and people were like, whoa, you have the pill thing on the phone. And I was like, yeah, I do. And people were losing their, and I had this moment, because to me, I don't care. But for everybody else, they were like, wow, you got the newest thing. And then literally 6 months later, nobody cared, because everybody had it.
Everybody.
And it's because we need the next thing immediately. It's just new stimuli, and it's the extreme excess that we live in today.
He also talks about in the small group discussion.
Yeah.
He talks about people that have these big houses, which I have one, and I always have. But he talks about such a and mine isn't that big. There's people that have a lot nicer houses than I do.
You're living it well, I think.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, for the most of the world, people are like, yeah, I'll take that place.
Yeah.
Meekins.
Oh yeah.
But they say they have these houses, and in their houses, like this, like we're talking to someone in middle of the jungle of Africa. Is that a bad thing to say?
I mean, it is a place.
Yeah,
the people are there,
and they're not used to it. They don't have the
Right.
technology we have, which they probably do now. But
yeah.
But there's these people in America. They have these big houses.
Oh yeah.
They're so big. There's a room added onto the side.
Yes.
That has this big door.
Oh.
And they park their cars in there.
Yes.
Well, not one car.
Multiple.
But two cars.
In
back there's people. And again, nobody's busting your chops about having stuff. That's not what this is about.
Right.
But we have these rooms
Yes.
that we park our cars in. In fact, in that same house, there's these other rooms that are fully furnished.
Okay.
But nobody sleeps in them. But just in case someone were to come over, just in case someone were to come over. Again, I'm living this, so there's no guilt or shame here.
Sure.
Just in case someone comes here,
Yeah.
they could stay here. I don't invite anybody over.
Right. No. Heaven forbid. We should
they
do
would.
that.
They would mess up the sheets.
Yes,
and someone would have to change them. And I'm certainly not going to change them.
Do the laundry. I see. When you put it into perspective like this is hilarious. It's like what you're describing is a normal American house.
Normal.
Right. But when you describe it like that, from if I were from the middle of Pakistan and I was in
It'd be like, what?
Yeah, or if I was in a Mongolian nomadic tribe or something crazy. And then you hear this and you go, "Excuse me? You have this air-conditioned room where you park a motorized horseless carriage.
Yeah.
And then you have a bedroom,
Yeah.
a living quarter."
I almost moved to this house at an air-conditioned
Yep,
garage.
there you
It was
go.
Sweet.
Exactly. And when you say things like that, it's like, well, isn't that too much? Shouldn't you be doing more? And it's like, well, you could, but when you have the things that you have your home, you have your car with your air-conditioned garage, it's how you're using it, because there isn't anything inherently wrong with blessing. Like we were talking about the prayer of Jabez.
Yeah.
I pray it every morning now.
Yeah.
I even bought I was talking about this. I bought the little wooden plaque on eBay, and it's got like a little metal thing in the middle with like pray hands, and it's the prayer of Jabez, and it's right next to my door, and I pray it every single morning because I want my blessings to impact others.
Right.
And that's the ultimate point, is that you're serving with your money, with your wealth.
So why don't we feel rich? I mean, we've got all this. So we're just all joking that, not joking, but it's true, that we have all this stuff. But how come I don't feel rich?
Yeah. Well,
I just need, what did Rockefeller say?
How much money is enough? Just a little more.
Just a little more.
Just a little more. Because you always feel, and I feel that. I mean, with every paycheck I got paid this morning, it's like, if I had a little more, I could do this. Yeah. And then once you have that, it's like, well, there's also this. And if I had a little more. And there's never enough, right? Because even if you do win the lottery and you're given like, you know, you read the lottery things and it's, you know, yearly salary for the rest of your life, $56,000 a year for the rest of your life. And it's this whole, well, if I had that, I could have everything provided for.
Right.
And then once you get it, you're like, well, it's like an average income, and I could use a little more. So there's never enough. And this is where you find contentment with what you have, being grateful for what you do have.
Margin.
Exactly. And so, would you want to talk a little bit about that?
No, finish going.
No, yeah, but what you're grateful for is what you have, and you got to be in the mindset of, I am so thankful that I have a bed to sleep in every night.
How do you get there? How do you get to that thankful? Because I mean, it's not natural.
Right. It's not. Yeah. Well, the lizard brain in you, the survival instincts are like, well, I need to hoard more because survival instincts. I need to have enough, and so it goes against your nature. But if you practice a little bit every day of just gratefulness, like you hear those, look at yourself in the mirror and point out 3 good things about yourself. You know,
so
it's
lame.
Lame. Yeah. But if you do that with just things that you're grateful for when you're praying.
You are a winner.
Yeah, right. I have enough. How
about this?
I have enough.
You are totally a winner,
Yeah,
you loser.
You're a winner, see? But if you start with just, I'm grateful for 3 things. With your the Lord's Prayer, you have, God, thank you for this day. Give us our daily bread. And it's the first thing that you're doing is you're asking for your portion that God gives you, that God allots you, and being grateful for it. Because God gives you exactly what you need. And even if you feel in your human brain that it's not enough, it's actually exactly what you need for the time being. And you can pray and ask for more. It's just you have to show God that with what you have, you do well with it. You're serving others. You're being generous. And just, again, it's like I have a bed every night that I can sleep in. I have air conditioning in my house. Just gratefulness.
So there's a guy, he's a podcaster, and he's a writer, writes all kind of, The Energy Bus with John Gordon.
Okay.
And he was like in this, before he started writing, he was like in this angry, bitter lifestyle, and nothing was good enough. And he was killing himself physically and his relationships.
Yeah.
And he was able to dig himself out of that by starting being gratitudes, taking a gratitude walk, writing 3 things that he's grateful for.
Exactly.
It takes practice.
Yes.
To carve out time.
Yeah.
To actually do that.
Right.
And that's the beginning.
Yes.
It just doesn't come natural.
Yeah, it takes
because we
time.
live in a world,
and it goes against your instincts. So, talk a little bit about margin. What is it?
So he went on to talk about margin, and so he talked. It's a great story. He goes on to talk about his first job was at Winn-Dixie.
Okay.
And his first check was like $250 or whatever it was.
Boy,
it was
oh boy.
minimum wage.
Yep.
But he had no debt whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he goes, I've never felt that because I had $250 to spend on whatever I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I really
Mostly
didn't need anything. I just lived at home. And so I had this $200 that I have never had. And so this margin of what happened. And so, but unfortunately, the older you get and the more you buy into the world, the smaller that margin gets.
Yeah.
And so you're like, hey, wait a minute. You know what? I need a membership for LA Fitness or for the Crunch.
Yes.
And you know, I know it's what, $10 a month. Come on, what's $10 a month?
It's actually $16.99 a month.
Yeah, $16.99.
Yeah.
Inflation, it's gone crazy.
Yep.
And you know, I mean, I can't be driving around this. We used to call them a $50 bomb. That was a car. You could get it. You literally could get a car, drivable car for $50.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
What year was this?
This was in the 70s.
Okay,
which I've had a couple of those.
$50
and you
bomb.
get you drive it for like 6-8 months and
then it explodes.
It just dies.
My mom did a lot of those where it was like just drive it into the ground.
Oh yeah,
New
and
car, drive
back
in the
then,
ground.
if your car got at 50 or 60,000 miles, you traded in. Like now, it's like in a Honda.
Oh,
that's
Toyotas, Honda. Yeah.
All that to say is, so you know, okay, well now I need this car and now I need insurance. So that $200 is like, well, we'll say it's $1,000 a month.
Right.
It's $16 for the crunch.
Mm-hmm.
My car payment's going to be another, $150.
Yep.
Which would be cheap for a car.
Yes, that's very cheap.
My insurance. Oh yeah, I forgot about my insurance. Okay, and so
Yep.
now all of a sudden, like I'm up to $300.
Yep.
Oh wait a minute, they take out tax, and so
Yep.
this thing gets smaller, and then we're like, yeah, but this is just, and everybody's got them. Everybody's got an iPhone.
Yeah.
That's $50 a month.
I'm
right?
paying, like 80 some, because I'm paying off the phone because they had this deal where if you own it for this many years, and this is the funny part, if you own this phone for this many years, you get.
They should all go to jail, but go ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They make you sign this contract where it's like, it's only going to be, it's $1,000 off. So it's only going to be this. It's just you're paying it over 4 years or something like that. So you're paying your phone bill for the unlimited plan plus paying for the phone itself. You
And I
put
can't
that
have a
together.
flip phone.
Oh, God, no.
Come on.
You would die. You will
what?
light on fire if you have a flip phone. You need a 15. And so I have this phone. And they make you pay this. And then you get the text of, well, if you trade it in, you can get the new phone and we'll pay off the old one. We'll pay it off. And then they get you in a new contract. So it's a cycle.
And they do that with leasing cars. They'll say, well, we'll
Yes.
buy out your lease. You just need to come and get this new one. I had a sister that was, she was paying $1,000 a month for like a Taurus. And this was probably like
gosh.
20 years ago. And
Oh,
it's
my
like,
gosh.
it was like nuts. Now $1,000 isn't that much.
That's pretty normal.
But back then,
That's crazy.
I mean, the first time we were going to buy a minivan, I didn't buy it because the payment was going to be $199.
Right.
I'm like, $199? That's
Really?
crazy.
A month?
Maybe it was $240.
What year?
82.
Okay,
82.
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, that's nuts. But all that to say is that the more you start is the margin.
Yes.
And so when he had this huge margin,
Right.
and so the Bible talks about living debt free, which is I get it. It's we never live debt free.
No, yeah. Well, I don't have any debt.
Now I do. Now I am.
Yes.
But it took taken years. Now I'm not
Exactly.
because I bought a car.
There you go.
And my margin
Back
is
in
like
debt.
here.
Exactly.
And so there's less peace
Right.
because I got to pay this nut over here.
Yep.
You And so you take away your margin. And so the margin is, oh wait a minute. Okay, if I don't need to worry about anything because I have money in the bank or I have this. And so the smaller the margin, the less peace there is.
Yes.
And so keeping that in margin.
Yes.
And we don't live like that in America.
No. You need to be in debt.
And the richer, and so people go, well, this guy, he makes, when I was younger, he makes $35,000 a year, which is poverty now. But
Yeah.
I used to, at one point, I used to say, if we made $35,000, we'd be golden. When we made 35, we're like, well, if we just made 45 or maybe 50,
then we'd be good.
then there would be no problem.
Oh, yeah.
And that's never stopped.
Exactly.
And so that's why I bought the car wash. Well, if we just made this much, then we would be okay.
There you go.
And so it never stops. So again, margin gives you the opportunity to live in this free zone where you're like, hey, I'm okay. And
Right.
and I have the opportunity to help people. So what I started saying is that what's happened is people go, these rich people, they're like, oh, I make $200,000. I think that, would we say if you're making $200,000, you're doing pretty good, right?
Oh, yeah. $200,000, you're above good. Yeah, you're doing great.
But they pay a lot of their taxes, so let's knock out, so here I am, I'm making $200,000. Boom.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute.
But
probably $50,000 in taxes.
Yeah, 50,000 probably goes
So
to
down,
tax.
down to $150,000.
Uh-huh.
And well, I am making $200,000, so I
Right.
probably should live in a decent neighborhood.
Right, yeah. So then
Down
I'm
here
paying
in
an
Florida.
HOA fee. And
Down here in Florida, anything decent is $1 million. I know
Yes.
that for the rest of the world that's crazy, but it's $1 million for a decent house in a nice neighborhood with other families that
Yes.
our kids could be friends with.
Yes.
Okay, $1 million at right
in
now
a-
at 8% is $8,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's without paying electricity,
yeah.
taxes, and your taxes on that are going to be probably $1,000.
Yeah. And then you have, depending on what neighborhood, you have an HOA fee sometimes if it's gated, if you want to feel safe.
And again, you have to have a nicer car.
Right. Come on, guys. I make
We're
$200,000
gonna
a year.
drive around in a beat up Chevy Impala.
Chevy Impala. A silver 2011 Chevy Impala. Who would do that?
Who would do that? But if you got married, I can guarantee you, if you got married and you had a kid, your wife, I don't know who she is yet, nor
probably doesn't exist. Nowhere to be found.
Nor do you. Right. She'd be like, no.
We need something more reliable.
Either I'm going to call my dad and tell him to buy me a car. Or you're going to get that car. And I don't want you driving through the neighborhood and looking like a white trash that you
looking like a homeless person that I am.
And it's a really nice car.
It's a reliable car. It looks okay. Right now it's making a weird noise when I turn the wheel, but it's like a $5 fix.
Okay, so let's go back to margin.
So
the more we make, it's like this margin just shrinks in.
Yes.
And so to be truly rich is to say, okay, and the Bible's very clear about it. It's like, don't be in debt to other people. Don't be slave to the debtor.
There's a huge part of the Old Testament law where it talks about debt. Debt canceling was considered one of the most gracious things that you could do. There's a holiday every 7 years where all of your debts would be canceled in the Jewish tradition, because owning a debt for a certain while and pressuring people for money could have been considered a sin if somebody had beaten and grabbed the person that was indebted to you. So they would just cancel debt to make sure that nobody was able to sin. And so debt canceling is just something that was a part of Old Testament law, and it was considered a huge way of blessing people. But I think one of my favorite quotes that summarizes the American dream is this isn't a Christian guy. His name's Tim Dillon. He says, "Debt, Mr. Pappas."
He is not a Christian.
He's not a Christian guy. He goes, "Debt, Mr. Pappas, will set you free." And I think that is the quintessential American idea. And obviously he's kidding, but I think what is so contrary to the Bible about the United States is just the fact that we need to be in debt and that we need to have this excess. And like you had said, you wouldn't realize it, but the more you have, the more your margin shrinks. Yeah. So like for me, I'm debt free because I just can't stand the idea of being in debt. Like I have no credit card debt. I don't have a car payment because I don't want to. And this isn't me tooting my own horn, no pun intended, with the Impala. But I don't want to live in debt because, for me especially, it is such a place of stress.
Okay, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
Please.
Go ahead.
So here you are, living debt-free, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself because you got this big margin.
Right.
And then we got some guy over at the Crunch, and he's driving a BMW.
Right.
He's huge.
He's massive.
I
know exactly what you're talking about.
He's got a good-looking babe on his right side,
Yep.
He's got a cool apartment over there.
Literally picturing him in my head, yep.
But he like is a slave to that.
Yes.
So he's like, how did that guy think that he's like doing well?
Right.
And so the difference is that we're talking inner peace.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a peace that comes with not being in debt, obviously, because it's not like you have a looming boulder over you that could topple at any given moment. Because with debt, it is a thing that could financially, and this is an extreme, obviously, but it's one of those things that could kind of sweep the rug out from underneath you. If something bad happens, if you have a financial emergency, debt isn't going to be your best friend in that scenario.
And talk about the biblical perspective of debt.
Yeah. Yeah, debt is like, that's something that has to be paid off one way or another. And then there's in like the sin way in, Jesus' redemption, we had a debt to God really with our sin nature that needed to be paid off that we couldn't do through sacrificing like the Old Testament made us do.
Trying to work our way out of it.
Yes, trying to work our way up the ladder to heaven. But, Jesus paid the ultimate debt for us. Is really, I think, a great example of debt canceling is what Jesus did, and it's kind of one of those things that really puts importance on this idea in the Bible of debt and debt canceling, is because ultimately we had a debt to be paid off with God, and it was kind of like I said, this boulder, this looming thing over us that at any moment could sweep the rug out from underneath us. Of like, if you die, you got to answer for all these bad things. You got to pay it somehow. How are you going to get into heaven? And it's like, well, I couldn't do it myself. I had no way of getting into heaven on my own. And then Jesus comes along. He says, don't worry about it. I will pay your debt for free. All you have to do is follow me. Just turn from your old ways and become a Christ follower, and he will cancel your debts. And when you live as a Christian, you're living debt free, and you feel the margin, you feel the peace, like you were talking about. So even with finances and in your spiritual life, these concepts go hand in hand.
I'm working on Ephesians 2, and I was working on this morning, and obviously I didn't work hard. But on 2:8 it says, "God saved you by His grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done.
There it is.
So none of us can boast about it.
Exactly.
For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus." And so the issue is that I don't know how we turned this spiritual all of a sudden.
Well, it is a Christian podcast after all.
Oh, good. Jesus.
Yes.
So there's nothing that we've done to earn that salvation.
Right.
There's nothing we've done to earn it. So we can't boast about it. And you can't get there by good works.
Right.
You can't get the benefit of being rich by doing the good works. You get it by giving out of my extra. And so the idea of being rich well is that I live within my margin. I'm okay. Like God sees me as the masterpiece I already am.
Yes.
And that I do have a couple bucks in the bank, and I do want to give to that young person over there.
There you go.
$100 for their mission trip because they're struggling. Or I do want to, in my case, raise the wages of my employees.
There you go.
Because they're the working poor. I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they work hard.
Yeah.
And so now we're not in a position to do that. I mean, we're bleeding as we do, but we're working in a direction so that there's a margin that we can represent God who loved us, and we can say that God loves you, and that He's provided for me so that I can provide for you,
right?
And that God loves me. I am not going to boast, because I tell you what, if this thing turns around, this car wash turns around, it is only God.
Oh, absolutely.
It is going to be
a miracle.
Only a miracle from God.
Yes.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
And that's good.
Because I believe that He can do miracles.
Yes.
I'm just asking that He would do it sooner than later.
Please hear me.
So that I can be a good steward.
Right.
And in the meantime, I believe I still am a good steward.
Yeah, with what you have now.
I do it. I let you come in my house.
Thank you for doing that. I allow you to come in. Yeah.
We left last week when we got done. Joyce and I had to go. And we're like, okay, just lock up on your way out, Will. And he's like, okay.
All right. That's a lot of trust you're placing in my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so the margin gives us a freedom to be the person that God's created us to be, that we love to do.
Exactly. Yeah. So the whole point with, one of the last 3 points there was, love. Was it love, give, and serve? It was, the last point was
love. Give, serve, love.
Yeah. Give, serve, love. That's what it was. And it was giving and serving. So the whole point of being rich well is, now that you have this margin, this is spiritually and financially, out of that, you have the extra that you can give, that you can serve with. And this is something that applies with your money, obviously, and it can apply with your spirit. Now that you have this inner peace and you're not constantly ramming against the borders of what you can handle, you have this margin of peace that you can be gracious to others with. You can
because
give.
if there's more to this than just this world, then I want to be investing in the future, in
treasures
my future.
In heaven.
And I know it sounds like, oh, okay, we're getting the message. We don't collect money. If you want to send money, that's cool.
Please.
But it's not like we're asking for money. What we're talking about is, do you want freedom to be the person that you really believe you are?
Yeah.
It starts with margin.
It starts with margin.
In your life, not only physically and spiritually, but financially.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a 15. Maybe I have a 13.
Heaven forbid you should have an 11 or a 12.
All those women on the Hallmark movie, I'm pretty sure they don't have a 15. I'm sure they have a 10.
Yeah. Yep. That's fine. And that's okay. As long as it works.
Right.
Just maybe if I get married, she will want me to not have a 2011 Chevy Impala anymore. Which.
So, okay, honey, you can't spend your money. Okay, you can't spend money because
so we're going to have to save
right.
for a new car.
Right.
That's what I'm doing now.
But so let's give us a wrap up.
So I would say when it comes to how to be rich and how to do it well, it's not about how to manage your money so that you can make more. It's not about what you can get. Ultimately, it's about what you can give. And this is, out of a spiritual principle and out of a financial principle. It's like storing up treasures in heaven. The real treasure that you're storing up, the real money that you're saving is the eternal gift that Jesus gives us when we receive eternal life in heaven. It talks about it, these are riches that are not robbed by robbers. These are not destroyed by moths. These are things, acts of service that we do in this life that Jesus sees and says, I will reward you with an eternal gift that is outlasting anything that you could ever make here on earth. So live within that margin so that you can give more, so that Jesus gives you more, because ultimately it's about serving him and serving his kingdom
and representing him. It's like, hey, of course I don't want to give my $20 to that guy over there.
Right.
But
what if you did?
But if God's telling you to do something,
do it.
And you can do it.
Yes.
There's a big difference. Like, I'd do it, but I don't have $20.
I just don't want to do it.
Right. Or no, I can't.
I'd rather save this money.
Yeah. Or I can't.
Yeah.
Because I don't have it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's people. You're abnormal. I'm just saying.
In a good way.
Yeah. It's on the moment. You're abnormal because you're like, I want to be a good steward.
Mm-hmm.
And you are living debt free.
Yeah.
And you do save money.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing these things. We're talking, there's a lot of people out here that just aren't as good as you.
Because remember, I am above half. I am in the top 47.
But you also were raised by parents that wanted well for you, and you're an only child.
So I got the brunt of it, the good and the bad.
But do you want to be free to say, you know what, in my heart is burning that I want to do this, or I want to participate in this. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to go to work next week. I want to go on this mission trip that is going to be amazing, and I can actually afford to miss a week to go do something that would change my life.
Yeah.
It's life-changing. I've gone on mission trips that have changed everything about me, and it was because at some point I was able to have enough margin.
Yeah.
And now I can't do that. I can't do anything.
Right.
Because I have no margin.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to myself.
Yes.
We should have someone that talks about money. I think I got a guy.
You got a guy?
I got a guy.
Okay.
And
next week.
I mean, we're going to have to give him rules.
We're going to have to give him margin to work with.
We're going to have to give him margin to work in.
Guideline.
But he's a great guy. He understands a lot of this. God's showed his favor on him. And I'll talk to him this week. But
right.
Let's wrap it up, and then I won't say anything more.
Okay. So we're cutting Chris off here. So thank you so much for listening. We will see you again next week when we have a special guest on, hopefully. We'll talk a little bit more about this. Thank you. See you next week.
God bless you. See you next week.
Peace.